Hans and Aruni. That evening, grandfather decided to tell a story to Vicky and Mala. It is a story from Indian mythology. Started grandfather. Long, long ago, there lived a great sage called Damuya. He had plenty of students. One of his students was Aruni. Damuya called Aruni one day. Aruni was, I want to bring you some more firewood. He went to fetch the firewood. It started raining heavily. He checked his teacher's farm. The bank was crumbling. He thought if the rain continues, it would flood and the field would fill and the crops will be washed away. I must do something. Aruni dropped the firewood and ran to the bank. He thought of calling for help, but no one was around it and it was getting late. He added mud to plaster the gap. He wanted to make the bank strong, but the rain washed the mud away. He had no time. He had to stop the bank from breaking. He had an idea. He lay down on the gap and his body prevented the bank from breaking. His teacher found him there shivering in cold and fear and hunger. Aruni was constantly muttering, bank breaking, crops washed away. Damuya picked up Aruni and asked his other students to mend the bank. Damuya smiled. You laid down on the boundary to prevent the crops from being washed away. I raised you from the boundary. So you would be known as Udlaka, which means raised from the boundary. Aruni became a great scholar. He was the teacher of King Janaka, father of Sita in Ramayana. When grandfather finished the story, Vicky jumped up and down and said, I know a similar story. They taught me in the school. You are always showing off. Mala teased him. They both started fighting. Grandfather said, Now, children, let's hear Vicky's story. This happened in Holland. Vicky started. I know Holland. A large part of Holland in a country in Europe is below sea level. The country is held back by the dikes, walls built along the coast. Still, a large part of the country lies below the sea level, said Mala. Now who is showing off? Teased Vicky. Hans lived in Holland. His father was a lockkeeper. His job was to open and close the shutters in the dike to make sure that the water in the canals was always at the right level. Hans knew what would happen if level was not kept at the right level. I see no connection between the stories, said Mala impatiently. You shall see shortly, said Vicky and continued. One day it started raining and the water in the canals was rising. Hans saw a small hole in the dike. He knew that the pressure of the water increases now and the hole would not stay small for long. That means flood. Now I see it, said Mala. Grandfather smiled. Vicky carried on. Hans knew what to do. He climbed onto the dike and put his finger in the hole. He hoped that someone would come by soon, because he felt quite cold and sleepy. Just like Aruni, exclaimed Mala. That's why I That's why I was reminded of it, silly, said Vicky. Okay, then what happened? Asked the grandfather. Early next morning, the priest found Hans lying on his tummy halfway up the dike. The priest asked him why he was doing. Hans replied, I am holding the water back. It was a simple answer. Everyone in the Holland was proud of Hans. When Vicky finished his story, grandfather said, this is why knowing mythology helps. See, if every country has its own folklore of acts of courage, intelligence, and selflessness. Now go to sleep, children. Tomorrow let's meet with another story. Good night. Mala and Vicky together wished their grandfather good night.